In the grand drawing room of Buckingham Palace, millions of television screens across the Commonwealth flickered to life on Christmas Day 2023. What viewers witnessed appeared to be another traditional royal Christmas message from King Charles III. Yet beneath the familiar pomp and ceremony lay something extraordinary, a masterclass in royal communication that would reveal the true depth of a family's love, resilience, and unspoken bonds. As the king spoke from his ornate chair, surrounded by carefully chosen decorations and meaningful artifacts, few realized they were witnessing one of the most emotionally significant royal addresses in modern history. Hidden within his words, woven through his gestures, and embedded in every visual element of the broadcast was a tender tribute to a woman who had captured not just the nation's heart, but had quietly revolutionized what it meant to be royal in the 21st century. This is the untold story of how a monarch used the most watched royal broadcast of the year to honor someone whose grace under pressure had redefined the very essence of modern royalty. It's a tale that begins not in palaces or staterooms, but in the quiet moments between public appearances, where real relationships are forged and true character is revealed. The Princess of Wales had faced her greatest challenge yet in 2023, and the king had witnessed every moment of her journey. Now, before an audience of hundreds of millions, he would find a way to acknowledge her strength without breaking protocol, to celebrate her contributions without overshadowing tradition, and to show the world that sometimes the most powerful messages are delivered not through grand proclamations, but through the subtle art of royal diplomacy. What unfolded that Christmas Day was more than a speech, it was a love letter written in the language of monarchy, a testament to family bonds that transcend titles, and a reminder that even in the most formal of institutions, the human heart finds ways to express what matters most. The morning of December 25, 2023, dawned crisp and clear over Windsor Castle, where King Charles III stood before an ornate mirror in his private dressing room. His reflection showed a man who had waited 7 decades to wear the crown, yet in this moment, his thoughts were not on his own historic reign, but on the remarkable woman who had helped steady his family through one of their most challenging years. Catherine, the Princess of Wales, had faced unprecedented scrutiny and pressure in 2023, yet had emerged with a grace that reminded the king of his own beloved mother. As his valet adjusted the final details of his formal attire, Charles reflected on the conversations he'd had with his daughter-in-law throughout the turbulent months that had passed. Her quiet strength, her unwavering commitment to duty, and her natural ability to connect with people from all walks of life had not gone unnoticed. The king's Christmas address had been a cherished tradition since his grandfather's time, broadcast to millions across the Commonwealth and beyond. Each word was carefully chosen, each gesture precisely planned, and every visual element meticulously arranged to convey specific messages. This year, however, Charles had decided to break from convention in the most subtle yet meaningful way possible. In the weeks leading up to Christmas, palace staff had noticed unusual requests from the king regarding the setup for his address. Rather than the traditional formal arrangements that had characterized previous royal Christmas messages, Charles had asked for specific modifications that seemed, at first glance, minor but carried deeper significance for those who understood the intricate language of royal symbolism. The drawing room chosen for the broadcast had been Catherine's suggestion during a private family dinner in November. She had mentioned, almost in passing, how the warm lighting in that particular room reminded her of Christmas mornings with her own family before joining the royal household. The king had filed away that comment, recognizing an opportunity to acknowledge her influence on the family's evolution while maintaining the dignity expected of such occasions. Palace courtiers, accustomed to decades of rigid protocol, found themselves navigating uncharted territory as Charles requested changes that honored both tradition and innovation. The floral arrangements, typically featuring classical English roses and holly, were subtly modified to include white peonies, Catherine's favorite flowers, which she had incorporated into her wedding bouquet over a decade earlier. The gesture was so understated that most viewers would never notice, yet those close to the family would immediately recognize its significance. As December progressed, the king's private secretary began to understand the full scope of what Charles was orchestrating. This would not simply be another ceremonial address, but a carefully crafted tribute that would celebrate Catherine's contributions to the monarchy while adhering to the delicate balance of royal hierarchy and protocol. Every element, from the choice of jewelry displayed in the background to the specific books visible on nearby shelves, would tell a story of appreciation and recognition. The Princess of Wales herself remained unaware of the elaborate tribute being planned in her honor. Charles had deliberately kept his intentions private, wanting the broadcast to serve as both a public acknowledgement of her service and a personal surprise that would demonstrate his genuine affection and respect. He understood that Catherine's natural modesty would likely prevent her from fully appreciating the significance of his gesture, but he also knew that history would record this moment as a turning point in how the monarchy honored its most dedicated members. During rehearsals in the days leading up to Christmas, palace staff observed the king's unusual attention to detail regarding specific camera angles and lighting arrangements. Charles insisted on particular positioning that would highlight certain decorative elements while maintaining the gravitas expected of such broadcasts. His requests puzzled some crew members, but the king's determination was evident to all who worked with him during those preparatory sessions. The evening before the broadcast, Charles sat alone in his study, reviewing the final script one last time. His words had been polished through multiple drafts, each revision carefully calibrated to achieve maximum impact while maintaining plausible deniability. To casual observers, his speech would appear to follow traditional themes of service, unity, and reflection. However, those who understood the subtle codes of royal communication would recognize the deeper layers of meaning woven throughout his remarks. As he prepared for sleep that Christmas Eve, the king reflected on the journey that had brought the royal family to this moment. Catherine's integration into the monarchy had not always been smooth, facing criticism from media outlets and skepticism from traditionalists who questioned whether a commoner could truly understand the responsibilities of royal life. Yet her response to every challenge had been marked by dignity, intelligence, and an unwavering commitment to the causes she championed. The king remembered specific moments that had crystallized his appreciation for Catherine's unique contributions. During a particularly difficult period of public scrutiny, she had handled press attention with a poise that reminded him of the late Queen's ability to remain graceful under pressure. Her work with children's charities had brought fresh energy and authenticity to royal patronages, while her support for mental health initiatives had helped modernize the monarchy's approach to contemporary social issues. Christmas morning arrived with the weight of tradition and the excitement of innovation. As palace staff made final preparations for the broadcast, the king took a quiet moment to consider the legacy he hoped to create through his reign. Supporting and celebrating the contributions of family members like Catherine represented more than personal affection. It demonstrated a monarchy capable of recognizing excellence regardless of its origins and embracing change while honoring tradition. The technical crew completed their equipment checks as the king took his position in the carefully arranged drawing room. Sunlight filtered through tall windows, casting warm shadows across surfaces adorned with meaningful objects and subtle tributes. In just minutes, millions of viewers would witness what appeared to be a conventional royal Christmas address, unaware that they were about to experience one of the most personally significant broadcasts in the history of the British monarchy. The red recording light illuminated, cameras began rolling, and King Charles III prepared to deliver a message that would honor the past while celebrating the present. His words would carry traditional themes of faith, service, and unity, but beneath the surface lay a deeper story of family, appreciation, and the quiet revolution that Catherine had brought to modern royal life. The tribute was about to begin, hidden in plain sight for those who knew how to look. The broadcast began with the familiar grandeur that millions of viewers had come to expect from royal Christmas addresses. King Charles, seated regally in his ornate chair, spoke with the measured cadence that had characterized his public speaking throughout his decades of service. Yet from the very first words, subtle departures from traditional royal rhetoric began to emerge, carefully crafted to honor Catherine's influence on the modern monarchy. As we gather this Christmas Day, I am reminded of the extraordinary individuals who dedicate their lives to service, often in ways that go unnoticed by the wider world, the king began, his eyes meeting the camera with unusual warmth. To most viewers, this opening seemed like a standard reference to public servants and volunteers. However, those familiar with royal communication recognized the deliberate choice to highlight unsung contributions rather than focusing solely on institutional achievements. Behind the king, the carefully arranged decorations told their own story. The white peonies, nestled among traditional Christmas greenery, caught the morning light in a way that drew subtle attention without overwhelming the formal setting. Palace florists had spent hours achieving the perfect balance, ensuring that Catherine's favorite flowers would be visible throughout the broadcast without appearing out of place among the more conventional royal Christmas decor. As Charles continued his address, he began weaving in themes that had become central to Catherine's public work. This year, we have seen remarkable examples of individuals who understand that true leadership often means listening before speaking, supporting before directing, and finding strength in vulnerability rather than projecting false certainty, he said, his voice carrying a note of personal conviction that seasoned royal watchers found unusually heartfelt. The king's reference to finding strength in vulnerability represented a significant departure from traditional royal messaging, which had historically emphasized stoicism and emotional restraint. This shift reflected Catherine's influence on the family's approach to mental health advocacy, where she had consistently argued that showing vulnerability could be a source of strength rather than weakness. Her work with children and families affected by mental health challenges had gradually changed how the royal family discussed emotional well-being in public forums. Palace staff monitoring the broadcast from adjacent rooms noted the king's subtle changes in tone and emphasis. His delivery carried an intimacy that suggested personal experience rather than formal obligation. When he spoke about the quiet courage of those who serve without seeking recognition, his words seemed to emerge from genuine observation rather than scripted necessity. The camera work, choreographed with unusual precision, occasionally panned to show specific elements of the room's decoration. A bookshelf visible in these wider shots contained volumes that held special significance, including several works on child development and mental health advocacy that Catherine had championed. Among them, a leather-bound collection of poetry by William Blake sat prominently displayed, its pages marked with ribbon bookmarks that suggested frequent consultation rather than mere decoration. The Blake collection held particular meaning for both Charles and Catherine, representing their shared appreciation for literature that explored themes of innocence, experience, and moral courage. During private family gatherings, Catherine had often referenced Blake's ability to find profound meaning in simple observations, a quality that Charles had come to recognize in her own approach to royal duties. Her ability to connect complex social issues to everyday human experiences had earned his deep respect and admiration. Throughout this year, we have witnessed exceptional grace under pressure, the king continued, his words carrying weight that extended beyond their surface meaning. We have seen individuals who face scrutiny with dignity, who transform criticism into opportunities for growth, and who demonstrate that true nobility lies not in titles or positions, but in how we treat others during difficult times. Royal historians watching the broadcast began to recognize the unprecedented nature of what they were witnessing. Never before had a monarch used the Christmas address to offer such pointed commentary on handling public criticism and media attention. The king's words seemed to acknowledge the intense scrutiny that Catherine had faced throughout 2023, particularly regarding her evolving role within the royal family and her approaches to modernizing traditional royal protocols. The visual composition of the broadcast continued to tell its own story. Behind the king's left shoulder, a small crystal ornament caught the light periodically, its surface reflecting rainbow patterns across the nearby wall. This ornament, a gift from Catherine's children to their grandfather, had been deliberately positioned to appear in the frame. Its presence served as a gentle reminder of the family relationships that existed beyond public roles and ceremonial obligations. As the address progressed, Charles began incorporating specific phrases that those close to Catherine would immediately recognize as references to her own words and philosophy. "The greatest gift we can offer our communities is the commitment to really see and hear those who need support," he said, echoing language that Catherine had used frequently in her speeches about early childhood development and family support services. The king's emphasis on really seeing and hearing others reflected Catherine's consistent advocacy for taking time to understand individual circumstances rather than applying broad solutions to complex social problems. Her work with families in crisis had taught her the importance of listening carefully before offering assistance, a lesson that had gradually influenced the royal family's approach to their various charitable endeavors. Palace communications staff noted the positive response from viewers who were beginning to share clips and comments on social media. Many expressed appreciation for what they perceived as a more personal and emotionally accessible tone from the king, though few realized they were witnessing a carefully orchestrated tribute to Catherine's influence on royal communication styles. The middle section of the address focused on themes of resilience and adaptation, concepts that had taken on new meaning within the royal family during Catherine's years of service. "Change, when approached with wisdom and grace, becomes transformation," Charles observed, his words carrying the weight of personal experience. "We have learned that maintaining tradition does not require resistance to growth, but rather the courage to evolve while holding fast to our core values." This philosophy perfectly captured Catherine's approach to her royal role. Rather than simply conforming to existing protocols, she had found ways to honor tradition while introducing innovations that made the monarchy more accessible and relevant to contemporary society. Her ability to balance respect for historical precedent with recognition of changing social needs had become a model for other members of the royal family. The king's address was approaching its midpoint, and the most significant elements of his tribute were yet to come. Palace staff prepared for the segment that would test the boundaries of royal protocol most directly, as Charles prepared to acknowledge specific achievements and qualities that could only refer to one person, even though her name would never be spoken aloud. As King Charles reached the heart of his Christmas address, the carefully orchestrated tribute to Catherine entered its most meaningful phase. The monarch's words took on a more personal tone, though maintaining the dignity expected of such broadcasts. His next statements would push the boundaries of traditional royal communication while remaining within the bounds of protocol. "This year has shown us the power of authentic leadership," Charles said, his gaze steady and purposeful. "We have witnessed how genuine care for others can transform not only individual lives, but entire communities. When someone approaches their responsibilities with both professional excellence and personal warmth, they create ripple effects that extend far beyond their intended scope." The king's reference to authentic leadership represented a significant acknowledgement of Catherine's impact on royal service. Unlike the formal, distant approach that had characterized royal engagements for generations, she had introduced a more personal style that maintained dignity while allowing genuine emotional connections with the people she met. Her ability to remember personal details about individuals she encountered during public engagements had become legendary among palace staff and had set a new standard for royal interactions. Behind the king, the camera captured a glimpse of a watercolor painting that had been strategically positioned for this moment. The artwork depicted a garden scene featuring the same white peonies that adorned the room's floral arrangements. This painting, created by Catherine herself during her art therapy advocacy work, had never been publicly displayed before. Its appearance in the Christmas broadcast represented both a private family treasure being shared with the nation and a subtle acknowledgement of Catherine's creative talents beyond her public duties. The king continued with observations that those familiar with royal family dynamics would immediately recognize as personal reflections rather than general commentary. "We are fortunate to have among us individuals who understand that true service requires both strength and gentleness, wisdom and humility, tradition and innovation. These rare souls demonstrate that excellence in one's duties need not come at the expense of kindness and accessibility." Palace historians noted the unprecedented nature of these remarks. Previous royal Christmas addresses had typically focused on national achievements, Commonwealth unity, or charitable causes rather than personal characteristics of individual family members. Charles was venturing into territory that required extraordinary finesse to avoid appearing to play favorites while still delivering meaningful recognition. The visual elements of the broadcast continued to support the king's verbal tribute. A small photograph, barely visible among other family pictures, showed Catherine during an unguarded moment at a children's hospital, kneeling to speak with a young patient while her security detail waited respectfully in the background. The image captured her natural ability to connect with people regardless of their age or circumstances, a quality that had endeared her to millions while challenging traditional notions of royal behavior. The past year has reminded us that our greatest treasures are often those individuals who serve without fanfare, who bring light to dark places, and who demonstrate that nobility is measured not by birth or title, but by how we choose to use whatever gifts we have been given, Charles said, his voice carrying unmistakable warmth and pride. These words represented perhaps the most direct acknowledgement possible within royal protocol of Catherine's journey from commoner to beloved princess. The king's emphasis on choosing how to use one's gifts spoke directly to her transformation from university graduate to dedicated royal family member, while his reference to serving without fanfare honored her preference for focusing attention on the causes she supported rather than seeking personal recognition. The broadcast reached a moment of particular significance when Charles shifted to discussing family values and their role in public service. "Within our own family, we have been blessed to witness how love, support, and shared commitment can overcome any challenge. We have seen how individual excellence can lift up those around it, creating stronger bonds and more effective service to our people." Royal protocol experts watching the address recognized this as an extraordinary statement. Monarchs traditionally maintained strict boundaries between personal family relationships and public commentary, yet Charles was openly acknowledging how Catherine's presence had strengthened the royal family's ability to serve the nation. His words suggested that her influence extended beyond her own charitable work to enhance the effectiveness of other family members' contributions. The king's mention of a shared commitment carried particular weight given the challenges the royal family had faced in recent years. Catherine's unwavering dedication to her duties, even during periods of intense media scrutiny or family difficulties, had provided stability and continuity that allowed other family members to maintain their focus on their own responsibilities. Her reliability had become a cornerstone of royal family planning and public scheduling. As the broadcast continued, Charles began incorporating specific references to causes that Catherine had championed, though he presented them as general observations rather than direct attributions. "We have learned valuable lessons about the importance of early childhood development, about supporting families during their most vulnerable moments, and about the courage required to discuss mental health challenges openly and honestly." These were unmistakably Catherine's signature issues, presented in a way that honored her contributions while maintaining the broader focus expected of a royal Christmas address. Her work with early childhood development had brought scientific rigor to royal charitable work, while her mental health advocacy had helped modernize how the royal family approached sensitive social issues. The king's acknowledgement of these achievements represented validation at the highest level of the monarchy. The camera work during this segment was particularly masterful, occasionally showing the king's hands as he gestured to emphasize certain points. On his desk, just visible when he reached for his water glass, lay a small notebook bound in blue leather. Palace insiders would recognize this as the notebook Catherine used during her charitable visits to record follow-up actions and personal commitments. Its presence on the king's desk during the broadcast suggested his awareness of and respect for her methodical approach to royal duties. Excellence in public service requires not just good intentions, but genuine preparation, careful listening, and the humility to learn from every encounter, Charles observed, his words reflecting direct knowledge of Catherine's working methods. Her reputation for thorough preparation before public engagements had become a model for other royal family members, while her practice of following up on commitments made during public visits had raised the standard for royal charitable involvement. The king was approaching the climactic moment of his tribute, where he would deliver the most pointed acknowledgement possible within the constraints of royal protocol. Palace staff monitored social media reactions, noting growing recognition among viewers that this Christmas address was unlike any previous royal broadcast in its personal warmth and specific focus on individual excellence within public service. As King Charles III approached the conclusion of his historic Christmas address, the weight of what he had accomplished became clear to those who understood the intricate language of royal communication. Never before had a monarch used this most formal of occasions to deliver such a personal and comprehensive tribute to a family member, yet he had managed to do so while maintaining every protocol and tradition expected of the broadcast. In closing, the king began, his voice carrying both the authority of his position and the warmth of genuine affection. I want to express my deepest gratitude to all those who have dedicated themselves to service in the past year. Your contributions, whether recognized publicly or known only to those whose lives you have touched, represent the very best of human nature and the strongest foundation for our shared future. The final camera position had been chosen with exceptional care, framing the king against a backdrop that told the complete story of his tribute. The white peonies remained visible, their delicate beauty providing a counterpoint to the formal grandeur of the setting. The children's artwork could be glimpsed on the side table, while the leather notebook lay open on his desk, its pages filled with what appeared to be personal notes and reflections. We have learned this year that excellence in public service requires not just dedication to duty, but the courage to innovate, the wisdom to listen, and the grace to remain humble despite achievements that speak for themselves, Charles continued, his words serving as both recognition of Catherine's qualities and a template for future royal service. These lessons will guide us as we continue our work together in the years ahead. The king's use of we and together represented a subtle but significant acknowledgement of Catherine as a full partner in the royal family's mission rather than simply a supporting member. This language suggested equality of contribution and shared responsibility that reflected the reality of modern royal family dynamics while honoring traditional hierarchical structures. Palace staff monitoring the broadcast noted the remarkable response developing across social media platforms. Viewers were commenting not just on the king's words, but on the unusual emotional resonance of the entire presentation. Many expressed feeling that they had witnessed something unprecedented, though few could articulate exactly what had made this Christmas address different from all previous royal broadcasts. Behind the scenes, Catherine herself watched from the private viewing room with tears in her eyes, finally understanding the elaborate tribute that had been crafted in her honor. William sat beside her, his own appreciation for his father's gesture evident in his expressions of amazement at the sophistication of what had been accomplished within royal protocol. Their children, though young, sensed the significance of the moment as they observed their parents' emotional reactions to their grandfather's words. The path of service is never easy, but it becomes meaningful when we remember that our efforts contribute to something larger than ourselves, the king said, his philosophy reflecting conversations he had shared with Catherine during private family moments throughout the year. True fulfillment comes not from the positions we hold, but from the positive difference we make in the lives of others and the legacy we create for future generations. This statement captured Catherine's own approach to royal life, where she had consistently emphasized the importance of measurable impact over ceremonial recognition. Her work with early childhood development had been guided by scientific evidence rather than tradition, while her mental health advocacy had focused on practical outcomes rather than symbolic gestures. The king's acknowledgement of this results-oriented philosophy represented validation of her methods and encouragement for continued innovation. The broadcast's visual conclusion featured a masterful final shot that encompassed all the symbolic elements Charles had incorporated into his tribute. The camera slowly pulled back to show the complete setting, the carefully chosen flowers, the meaningful artwork, the personal photographs, and the king himself, surrounded by objects that told the story of a family's love and appreciation for one of its most dedicated members. As we celebrate this Christmas Day, let us carry forward the inspiration provided by those who show us daily that service, when approached with intelligence, compassion, and unwavering commitment, can transform not only individual lives but entire communities and, indeed, our nation itself, Charles said, his final words before the traditional Christmas blessing serving as the culmination of his elaborate tribute. The king's closing blessing took on additional meaning in the context of his tribute, as he offered prayers not just for the nation and Commonwealth, but for continued strength and guidance for all those engaged in selfless service. His words seemed to carry special intention for Catherine, though they remained appropriately general in their expression. As the broadcast concluded and the final credits rolled, Palace Communications staff began monitoring the immediate response from viewers and media outlets. The reaction exceeded all expectations, with commentary focusing on the king's apparent emotional connection to his material and the unusual warmth that had characterized the entire presentation. Royal correspondents noted the departure from traditional Christmas address formats, though none immediately recognized the elaborate tribute that had been delivered. In the hours following the broadcast, social media analysis revealed that viewers had particularly responded to the king's emphasis on individual excellence and authentic service. Many commented that his words had inspired them to reconsider their own approaches to helping others, while others expressed hope that the royal family would continue to evolve in ways that made them more accessible and relevant to contemporary society. Catherine's response to discovering the tribute became a treasured family memory. Her genuine surprise at the elaborate recognition, combined with her characteristic modesty about her own contributions, reminded Charles why he had felt compelled to honor her publicly. Her immediate concern was whether the attention might overshadow the charitable causes she supported, a reaction that only confirmed the king's assessment of her character and priorities. The long-term impact of the Christmas address would extend far beyond its immediate reception. Royal historians would later recognize it as a watershed moment in monarchical communication, demonstrating how personal appreciation could be expressed through institutional channels while maintaining dignity and protocol. The broadcast established new possibilities for how royal family members might acknowledge each other's contributions while serving their official functions. Years later, when Catherine's own influence on the monarchy had become even more apparent, royal biographers would return to this Christmas address as the moment when her contributions received their first full recognition at the highest levels of the institution. The king's tribute, hidden in plain sight through careful word choice and symbolic imagery, would be remembered as one of the most sophisticated examples of royal communication in modern history. The Christmas Day that began with careful planning and nervous anticipation concluded with a sense of mission accomplished. King Charles had successfully honored Catherine's remarkable year of service while maintaining every tradition and protocol expected of his Christmas address. More importantly, he had demonstrated that even the most formal institutions could find ways to express genuine human appreciation and affection, proving that the monarchy's greatest strength lay not in its ceremony alone, but in its capacity to recognize and celebrate the extraordinary individuals who dedicated their lives to serving others.